Welcome, everybody. Today we are excited to have Jordan Hubler with us. Jordan, there you are. All right. Appreciate you joining our webinar today. Where are you coming to us from?
I'm in Spring Lake, North Carolina.
Awesome. Yeah. So Jordan is Director of Instruction at Anderson Creek Golf Club. And we've known Jordan for a while. He's been a great customer of ours. And we're excited today to talk about modern coaching with modern coaching tools. Jordan has been a great advocate for us. He's a prolific user of launch monitor data, 3D data, and has been posting a lot of great stuff on socials. And we thought no better way to show our coaches that are using Onform, etc., how real people are doing real lessons with the app, and especially incorporating technology. So before we really dive in, a couple of quick housekeeping things for everybody that are tuning in. Yes, this is being recorded. It will be posted to our YouTube channel by tomorrow. So if you miss the show, it will be easily downloadable on our YouTube channel. And also, we'll be doing Q&A throughout the webinar today. So if you have a question, just hit the little chat button on the Zoom interface and feel free to ask a question. There's a couple other people here monitoring that Q&A that will answer questions as we go, and also feed questions over that we'll review during the webinar, and afterwards we'll have a dedicated Q&A section. But if something comes up while we're talking, please use the Q&A chat section to fire in a question, and we'll try and cover as many as we can. We expect today to be around 45 minutes, so we will be trying to move through quite a bit of content pretty quickly. So just to get started, what is today really going to be about? So it's going to be talking about giving golf lessons with modern technology. And what kind of technology? Things like launch monitor data, 3D data, force plates, multi-cam recording. And we're also going to get Jordan to do a couple of live swing analysis. Is that right? Did I say that right?
Yes, yes.
For us. Because I think when we talk to coaches, it's the practical application that they're always asking for. What can I use in my lesson tomorrow that I could learn from another coach out there and understand their best practices and put it to use in my own coaching? And we love that practical application of technology. So that is going to be the quick agenda and outline. And Jordan, let's just kind of dive in. Can you give us a little background on, your teaching philosophy, and tell us a little bit about you?
Yeah. Again, Garrett, thanks for having me. Thank you everyone at Onform for having me. Yeah, like you mentioned before, I've been on Onform quite a while now. So give a little background. I started teaching at Eisman Golf Academy in Northern Virginia. So that was kind of my big, really right out of PGM. I went to Coastal Carolina and I did my PGM. So I got into the PGA program. And then that really kind of gave me the start of, what do you want to do with this? Do you want to go into teaching? What's the specialty? So really started to, realize that I wanted to coach. I wanted to teach. I wanted to stay competitive in my own mind, out on the driving range, helping people get better. That's always been my passion with myself, playing tournaments, things like that. I want to get better. I like being out there grinding, and if that's with, someone else to achieve their goals, like I love that. I love talking, golf clubs, different kinds of golf clubs, like when we go down that whole route as well. But yeah, so I found Eisman Golf Academy. John Eisman is the director there. Juan Suckery, he's the assistant director there. Those guys are amazing. They really started my education in the sense of learning a little bit about biomechanics. Wouldn't call myself an expert by any means, but just generally how the body is moving in our golf swing. And then when it comes to that, looking at the ground, um, Eisman Golf Academy, they have 3 different kinds of force plates there. So if you really can't figure it out there when it comes to forces and torques in the ground, I mean, we got a problem. So um, going all the way up to gas 3D force plates there where you can see all the way to your body's center of mass. So again, whether we're getting on those things every day or not, I think they're big, huge teaching tools for us as golf instructors. So myself now, I've moved down here in North Carolina, director of instruction down here at Anderson Creek Golf Club. Like you mentioned, I have now acquired smart to move force plates. So again, they're the 3D force plates. So they're not only portable for me, which is super important. I don't have a studio. I don't teach out of a studio currently. I would like to, get there. I'd like to get a nice building, but I think until then, I'm definitely, one of the guys out there that's a great example of, we're on the driving range, on a grass driving range, trying to utilize technology the best we can, but almost try to make it in, like an environment like we're in a studio without and again when it comes to technology, so that's when Onform I think comes in big for me, when it comes to I think setting up a couple different tripods, maybe doing multi-cam view or something like that. And then, I'm going to put everyone on my force plates as well. And we can kind of start to take a look at how you're moving. And I think that's, the biggest proponent of how we move that golf club a little more efficiently. So I'd say that's kind of my philosophy is I want to try to get you to move a little bit better. And I think that's where, 3D comes into play for me, with the new features in Onform, because we can start to measure the movement a little better. And at least when it comes to the student, I think they can see that a little bit better because I think one of the things as you're a young coach starting to learn some things is you really need to make that 2D eye really, really good. So I really still to this day, I like to challenge myself the most I can looking at the 2D video before I pull up 3D, before I pull up force plates, before I pull up any of the cool technology that I have. I use Full Swing Kit as well. So I think, again, before I look at a lot of that stuff and dig too much into it, I'm really looking at that 2D eye that I've developed over, last 4 or 5 years of, okay, I like the way this looks before and after, and then, let's generate the 3D and kind of see what data we're getting from that.
Cool. Thanks for the background. I mean, just to summarize, you're outdoors. Probably don't have Wi-Fi. I'm guessing you don't have Wi-Fi on the range.
Do not.
I love that you're setting up sort of a studio environment out there. And I have to, because we talked a little bit before, I have to have you give us a quick story of how you came to find Onform in the first place.
Yeah, that's a good one. So so I actually shared with you guys at the PGA show, which is really cool. So not gonna name drop any names, but I was using video software that's been around for a long, long time. So I've been using this, I would say, a good year or so, year and a half. And they did an update. I was pretty much coming in for full slate of lessons. I think 8, 9 o'clock in the morning, let's say, go to my first lesson, pull up the video, and not only is it going through an update, but I've lost all of my previous swing videos from other lessons, other students. They're all gone. So I had heard about Onform before. From another coach, I downloaded it right there on the spot and started messing with the tools, figuring out where everything's at. I think during that lesson, I was just like, hey, yeah, hit a few more, warming up type of thing. Cause I'm like, still trying to figure this out. All right. Ideally, any technology that I bring to a lesson, I would have liked to use that in a previous environment. I've used it on myself. I've tried it. I promise you, I'm a little more professional than that. But I would say it definitely, shows how Onform can be very user friendly too. And so I was able to kind of pick that up really quickly. I was like, okay, this is different. This is different, but oh, that's really nice. And then, again, this is, before 3D, before a lot of, I think, the features that, you guys keep adding in there, which is awesome. But, I could kind of see that from the beginning. I was like, oh, this is really cool. This is going to be, in my eyes, better. I almost have every student download Onform. I wouldn't say I make them, but I'm like, hey, all of your videos are going to be in here. Sending this to your email, download that link, and then you can see those. Because, I think all of us coaches know sending some kind of length video over text message, email, things like that can be a lot, especially if there's any length to it at all. Can get a little mucky there.
Yeah, well, we're glad you figured out how to use the app on the fly in front of a student. That's a cool testament. But I don't want to dive too far into there. But thanks for figuring it out. Let's talk a little bit more about sort of like your lesson structure. You gave us a little bit about some of your philosophy behind movement. Just take us through. I'm a student. I walk up. I have my first lesson with you. How do you walk them through your lesson structure?
Yeah, good question. Um, I think first of all that first lesson, I got to learn. I would say it's more of a learning day for me than you in that first lesson. I'm learning how you move, how you walk, how pretty much you do everything. Coming up to the lesson. So I'm looking at the clubs in your bag, what you're using. Have we had to dust these things off quite a bit before using them coming to the lesson? Um, and so I'm getting a lot of data in that first lesson. And I tell all this my students this too in that first lesson is this is a learning day for me. You're going to learn some good things, I promise you, but I would arguably learn a little bit more because each person that steps in front of me is different. I don't think it's not smart for me to put them in any kind of model. So, not all of us are going to move like Rory, right? Even though we want to. But I think when I start recording and I start doing some of these things, I'm just getting some raw video in the beginning, and then I'm starting to now put you on force plates. And as you're hitting two, I got full swing kit out there, and it's recording all this. And one of the things I will say that I like about having the full swing kit and Onform linked together is that I can pretty much set up the video, my iPad where I want it for that video. And if I'm bouncing around the lesson and doing a couple more things, I still want to get some of these videos recorded. As long as I have that selected on Launch Monitor, that's automatically recording the videos. So, just like an auto detect, for example, right? That Launch Monitor is once the ball is hit, it's grabbing that video as well, along with the Launch Monitor data. So when it comes to that, I really like that feature as well. Because again, it lets me kind of move around the lesson, and sometimes we have to go up to the player and move them around. Hey, remember we were talking about, setting up like this. So I might have to do that. And one of the things that I think's a little funny but challenging, in a lesson is when I have to run back to the video and, before they make their swing, because I do think, let's say this, I don't like interrupting people when they're going to make a swing where it's, hey, wait for me, wait for me, wait for me. Okay, now go.
Yeah.
I think that puts a little bit more pressure on them. I want them to just be being an athlete, and okay, when your brain says it's time to go, I want you to pull the trigger when you're ready. So I don't want you to be waiting on me. And sometimes I think it's like, do they make a better swing like that, or a worse swing like that when they're almost waiting for you to pull up the video or be behind the camera, right? So I think one of the things that is really big for that is that the full swing feature there.
Cool. Yeah. And for people that don't know, there's a launch monitor mode in the camera of Onform, and it will talk directly to the full swing kit. And now you don't have to record, right? You, like you said, you can go up and maybe work with someone's grip or move around the student, and every swing they take just automatically gets recorded on the video because the launch monitor is telling us when the swing happens, and we do the recording. Now, with the launch monitor, I mean, obviously it's gathering a bunch of club and ball data.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us a little bit about what you actually use. Which metrics are you really looking at, and when do you use the launch monitor data with a student?
Sure. I think it's a little objective, right? Where I think each person's going to look a little different. Um, if you look at, some of these maybe TrackMan averages on tour with tour pros, maybe some of their launch angles and things like that. Um, I think when you are working with a 60-year-old man trying to hit the ball a little better, I don't think his launch angles and spin rate and club head speed are going to be comparable to this tour player, right? So let's take launch angle for example. When that is at 15, 16 degrees with a 7-iron, well, that's around tour average. Well, when I maybe pull up, the rest of the numbers, total distance, and like, hey, we could be maybe hitting that a little farther. Um, Maybe for Joe, that launch angle isn't optimal for him. So why are these things happening, right? So maybe why aren't we getting some of the distance that, why are we missing some? Why are we kind of leaving some still in the tank, I guess? And that's when I start to look at how we're moving, how we're loading, and then when I'm doing that, then I'm starting to see some. I think not right away, but I think ideally we can see some number change. Maybe that's, again, going back to launch angle. Maybe that's gone higher by 2-3 degrees, and we're like, hey, and now the spin's up, and now we're carrying it further, right? Which I feel like most of us need spin. The average golfer, we need spin. We need spin to keep the ball in the air. We need spin to get the right launch. Where, tour pros are probably trying to bring the ball down, probably trying to eliminate some of their spin. I think as amateurs, most amateur golfers, spin is our friend. So I think that's probably one of the metrics that I look at. I think that being said, if I get a tour player in front of me, maybe something slightly different. Maybe we're looking at club path a little bit more. Maybe we're looking at, how we're going back to that spin. Are we spinning it too much with that tour player?
Yeah.
So I was working with a mini tour guy that we're he's G Pro, I should say, but trying to get out there, working with his wedges, and really finding that he was kind of floating these things up there too high. So launch angle and spin was off with the wedge. So I think it doesn't have to be. I would say when you switch from launch monitor to launch monitor, right? You're probably going to get some different numbers. But I think when it comes to working with the same system, I think then we start to go, okay, we're improving, So I think that's the one thing when it comes to launch monitors is it's not necessarily apples to apples. You want to be on the same system because, again, TrackMan's probably going to say something different. Full Swing's probably going to say something different. Foresight's probably going to say something different. I think they're all very similar when it comes to distance and things like that. But, there are certain things that's going to, because they're reading it a little differently, right?
So, I mean, I think we're the first to say, like, we're obviously a technology company, but you don't necessarily use this kind of technology with every player. And like you said, with an older person, maybe it doesn't really matter quite as much, certain metrics. Do you have any kind of rules, or do you leave the launch monitor out there for everybody, and then if you incorporate it into the lesson, you do, or maybe you don't? I'm just kind of curious. Especially being outside, you have to physically set it up. Is your setup set up for the day, and you bring people through no matter what?
Yeah, no, that's actually a great question. I think as a coach, and as someone who I want each player to feel like they are stepping in where everything here is there's a high value to this. So we're using everything on you that the tour player stepped in. I'm using the same things, right? So, and I think that's what we all want. I think for me, if I'm going to get a lesson, I'm looking at force plates and 3D and who's got that. That's what I want showered with me. Not everyone's going to feel the same way, I'm sure. But I think people definitely like being put on data, whether it's force plates, 3D, and not only can they see themselves get better, but I think it's definitely like, wow, like they're really taking the time with me to go through this technology and to show me a lesson that's maybe a little different than what I got, let's say 20 years ago or 10 years ago, even. So I think that whether we truly use it as coaches or not, I think it is important for that launch monitor to sit there during the lesson for everyone. So, for example, I use that for I teach 6, 7, 8 year olds. I got Full Swing right there. Are
Hmm.
we talking about spin or attack angle? No. But are we talking about club head speed? Absolutely.
Sure.
Because I am trying to get these juniors to get what I didn't have is that speed coaching right in there. Hey, let's crank this driver today. And I think, are we building athleticism, all that stuff? Yeah, 100%, right? So like those speed little speed sessions with juniors are huge. So I think with every person that steps in there, you could find one thing to whether use the launch monitor with, to use 3D or just Onform 2D with them, and then I throw everyone on my force plates as well. Um, so they're whether they're we're taking that data and going, okay, this is what we need to do today. Is I again going back to that in lesson one, I'm trying to get as much data recorded on you, so we can go back and go, hey, remember our first lesson? We do have your force plate data from lesson one too.
So if I understand you right, you've got it out there, but you're not necessarily showing every student all these numbers and over, like, I'm sure that's your perception of like how much you show them, or maybe in a voiceover reveal to them. Is that you're just making a judgment call based on the student of how much you show them, is or are you really giving every student the data, no matter what?
Yeah, good question. So I like having a goal during the lesson. And sometimes, for example, that could be club head speed, that could be attack angle, something like that, where if we're improving this metric,
Yeah, yeah, perfect.
they can see that, right? So they can see attack angle with driver be zeros or one versus like five down.
Yeah.
And then but again, I've kind of run them through that in the beginning, like, hey, look, this is part of the diagnosis of we're not hitting driver very good because our tack angle is too far down. So we need to improve this. And then we kind of go through, okay, we're going to maybe set up a little differently, and then we're going to do this. And so I've given them some cues to be able to fix that attack angle, right? And then so each time, I think later on in the lesson, when maybe you see it, go back to a little bit of that old, or they hit a bad one, and then you go, okay, hey, look, that attack angle got back to a little bit of that down, kind of that we were looking at. And then they go, oh, I didn't do this, right? So I think it's that, how can I say less and
Okay.
produce more, right? So I think when you can just give them that small, hey, that was starting to go back to the old. Oh yeah, got it. Okay.
I think that's so key because it's not about showing and overwhelming a student with 15 data points and look at all. It's like you find the one thing, you can work with them and a goal, and like your job is to then demonstrate, like, hey, look, you went from whatever -2 to +2,
Mm-hmm.
and the student takes more away from that, don't they? When they see those numbers versus, just, I guess it feels better, you know. Do you get that kind of reaction from people?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think again, like I was saying, when we're chasing something like that, that we know, okay, we're measuring it, right? And so when I can feel like I did it, and when the launch monitor, kind of tells me different, I go, oh, I need to do it more, right?
Gotcha.
So they're getting that, when they look at that number, it's like that um, immediate trial and error, cause and effect. Do I do more? Do I do less? Without the coach even saying a word.
Yeah.
Just they're kind of like, look, we pull up the number, hey, it's 1.5 down, right? We're trying to still get that positive.
Cool. We're gonna get to more 3D and into to your swing analysis here soon, so people can see how they do that. But I want
Yeah.
to talk a little bit more about your force plates. And Smart to Move is an amazing product. We don't integrate directly with them. It's something that I know a lot of coaches use along with Onform. Maybe someday we'll work out something to work with them. But is there one thing you're looking for with the force data or pressure data? And what is that one thing that you're looking for? Why you put them on it in the first place?
Hmm. Now that's a really great question. I think this is now you're speaking my language right here. So, um, yeah. So I think like I mentioned, I have a 6-year-old I work with. I put him on my force plates. So are the force vectors going to be a lot smaller with him? Because just the overall
Sure.
weight, yes, it will be. But I think generally with any lesson that steps in front of me, I'm looking at how much lateral force are they producing, and are they doing it early enough? And when I say that, I kind of mean, are we doing it before we start our golf swing? So at setup, are we producing enough lateral force um, to be able to move correctly and to be able to move, I would say, um, out of the starting gates really efficiently. So I almost kind of like look at it in the sense of Olympic track star athlete getting into the starting blocks, and okay, 3, 2, 1, he's trying to go as fast as he can, all those starting blocks. Well, we need to kind of have, I think, the similar thing when it comes to getting into our setup and then getting off the ball. Is how do I get off the ball as efficiently as I can? And I think often what we see is we're not producing really relatively any push. I would say most golfers that come to me in that first lesson, we're really not pushing into the ground at setup. So we're all just kind of standing on the ground. And it's like, all right, I'm going to create a golf swing now. When you look at baseball players, or I think gonna kind of go into the weeds here a little bit, but I think they're digging in, and they're really, a little different. Baseball players more with that back foot, but I would say they're pushing into the ground. I mean, you always see guys get in there and like start using their cleat to like their back cleat to like really start like digging a hole almost, right? So they can actually like create like some kind of bank, some kind of, wedge or something where they can actually grip and push off of, right? So I
And
think,
real quick, that's what you mean by lateral force, right? That
yeah,
ability to move yourself.
yeah, thank you. Yeah, the ability to move away from the target and towards the target. So moving away from the target in the backswing, moving towards the target in the downswing. So I think, not only does Onform measure this in 3D when you start turning your torso away from the ball, okay, now that's getting a more of a negative turn away from the ball, correct?
Mhm.
And then it starts to go positive as it's turning towards. So same thing with smart to move force plates is that lead foot will, if you're pushing away from the target going into your backswing, that's starting to produce a negative number. And then your right foot would be producing that positive number going towards the target. So if they're both pushing very evenly, you're not really going to get too much movement right and left. So the trick is getting someone to do that while they're swinging and turning and hitting a golf ball, right? Because I think as coaches, we all see, I think Dr. Greg Rose said this really well. He's like, I think he only thought there was one way to sway going into the backswing. And now with force plates and things like this, he found that there's like 250 ways to sway or something like that. And so it's all about what's kind of moving and what's moving more than the other, right? And then, if one thing is moving more than the other, can we start to stabilize that? So I think with your classic kind of trail hip sway, and I think over the years we've always called that your reverse C golfer, right? Um, we Now we know with force plates is that person isn't producing enough lateral force under their trail foot to be able to kind of break that motion going into the backswing. So to we're really kind of trying to put on the brakes there when we're going into that backswing. So we're not letting that lead foot win too much now. And then vice versa going on that other side. Sometimes we need to produce a little bit more force on that lead side to get us to move a little bit more into the backswing versus, not just sitting into that lead side early, which would be kind of like your more stack and tilt golfer.
So, I mean, at the end of the day, it's about quantifying, bringing what you see via the eye and quantifying it with some data, and then using that to corroborate and correlate to outcomes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I think force plates, pressure mass to some extent are super useful there. As we're cruising through here, I could probably ask you 50 more questions, but let's dive into the real cool part, which is let's have you share your screen and take us through how you analyze a swing.
Sure. Give me 1 second here.
While you're getting that set up, I'm going to answer a couple questions on a speed round. We
Sure.
do plan to work with some more launch monitors. I can't tell you at the moment which ones or when, but there will be more hopefully in the near future. Let's see, another one. We don't have putting analysis at this time. That's something we do want to train some of our 3D models on for putting, but it's not there at the moment. And well, we'll get to that one later. I think yeah, we'll touch on these in a little bit. That was two I want to check off. Go ahead and share your screen if you would.
All
Cool.
right. See that okay?
Yeah, we can see that.
All right. So this is actually a golfer I just worked with today. So you just want me to get right into it? Anything
Yeah, so
specific?
tell us who this is, or not who, but what did you work on with this person, and just tell us how you kind of evaluate a swing.
Sure. So this is to give you some reference. This is first lesson. So we'd previously done some short game clinics and stuff together. He joined, but when it came to first formal lesson, this is it right here. Um, so over here on the left, I always put my before on the left, and then I always put the after on the right screen. Um, I feel like that's always just a lot cleaner look. And so when we look at the player here on the left, we're starting to look at some setup things for me. But I'll play this out here from setup. We'll go to the top here. And I did throw him on the force plate. After this, so I always start out with video, and then kind of go into the smart to move as well after that. So kind of go back to setup here, and then I'll go setup right here. So I focused on setup here with this person, not only because it's lesson one, but what I'm looking at here is I tend to see this a lot, but I tend to see basically here, I'm going to start drawing some things here. If I put circle on kind of center of the chest there, and then if we did one right on the center of the pelvis there. I like to get these not only lined up, but I almost want to get the top more to the trail side. And so if I kind of put that straight down there, and I can even do something more 90 degrees. And so when you can see that, okay, so obviously the line that I just drew is kind of through that bottom circle, and it's kind of more on the right side of that circle. So if you're putting yourself in the player's position, that starts to look like our buttons of our shirt are almost ahead of that golf ball. And let's say they're also ahead of the center of your pelvis. So I think in a really simple way, if you just kind of think about your belt buckle and then your buttons of your shirt or your zipper here, is that he's setting up with the buttons of his shirt or his zipper to the left of his belt buckle. And I want him to reverse that. I want him to feel like the buttons of his shirt are slightly right of his belt buckle. So we're moving the mass around a little bit. We're trying to line that up properly, being upper mass and lower mass. I kind of think about that as your pelvis and your torso, thorax. And then so if we now, wrong one, pull that up more there. Now those are more lined up. So I think a really cool way to look at this is the new 3D feature. So when we start to go into the backswing, we can start to see how the X factor, the torso and hip in the middle here. So that middle number there, the middle number here. -30 is the old, -44 is the new. So the negative being we're turning away from the target, right? And so that's the difference between our torso turn and our pelvis turn. So as you can see here, that increased, and our pelvis, I wouldn't say that it turned more, but our torso definitely turned more. And I'm looking at that as a coach as more, we did a great job at stabilizing the pelvis from moving. So we can see really simply here, 1.9 inches sway pelvis away. Now we got zero point 0.7 inches pelvis sway away from the target on the new one. We can start to see, I think, in just the 3D avatar, that torso uh, starting to turn a little bit more away from the target. That's, I think, a good visual for all this as well.
Yeah, you can see the vertical line of kind of the vertebrae, the backbone. On your
Mm-hmm.
before, it's actually leaning towards the target, whereas on the after, it's a little bit of maybe trail side or a little bit away or vertical. So
Yep.
you can see that certainly visually represented. I think another thing that just kind of struck me here too is this guy's wearing all black, and you can't quite pull some of those things out. Like I was looking at them visually, and I was kind of wondering. This is my first time seeing these too for everybody watching, and so it was pretty neat to see the skeleton show that what you were talking about in terms of the setup posture at the top.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so when that didn't occur to me until you just said something. I was like, yeah, you're right. I was like, I was trying to, pick out some things. And I think what we did during our lesson was we went here and we said, hey, look how much more we can see that Nike symbol on the left thigh there,
Yeah.
right? And so we squared some things off. We squared some shoulder, his shoulders, torso, pelvis. We squared all that off at setup. But yeah, you're right. When you throw it into 3D, okay, you can start to see these things a little bit better, especially for the student, because often, um, I think it's really easy for the student to see a straight ball flight and go, wow, okay, I got better. But when it comes to movement wise, I'm over here like, oh, this is so good. And they're like, it is, like, what am I looking at? Right.
Right.
So I think when you can show them these things and go, okay, hey, see, in this 3D avatar, how, like we're starting to get your shoulder over there and, that pelvis is starting to turn more. And obviously, we got some data to throw in there. That's, I think, a really good value for them because they're walking away going, wow, all right, like I just got to keep moving like this. This is my homework, right?
Perfect. And then, do you, in your lessons, are you doing a voiceover with this kind of stuff and pointing it
Oh,
out? How do you do that?
oh my gosh, yeah, all the time. So, I would even say that sometimes I get behind where, I think that's just me getting busy, which is a good thing. But where I get them kind of stacked up. Okay, I got three lesson reviews to do, 3 or 4 lessons to do, lesson reviews to do. But the student loves the lesson reviews. I would say that's another big value that I make sure I tell everyone in that first lesson is that, hey, we're going to, I'm going to send you the Onform uh, download link, and then you're going to download that. It's free to you. And basically, all of our lessons are going to be set up in here where you can go back and watch this. It's basically like a YouTube video for your golf swing. And this is everything we worked on today. Are those things always changing, evolving? Sure. But, I think at the same time, we can always go back to those a little bit and go, oh, yeah, okay, I think I started to get away from that.
Yeah.
Maybe I need to do a little bit more of that at setup or whatever it might be.
Cool. Are you, we're kind of about as long as we expected, but let's keep going a little bit more.
Okay,
I'm gonna
I'll
do
do
a couple of,
another.
here, I have a couple questions for you real quick.
Sure.
Do you use any kind of questionnaire at the beginning of a lesson or prior to the lesson with your students?
Yeah. I actually have a whole. I actually started this year, but I actually started a whole new kind of, uh, I would say, uh, questionnaire, but it's like a background where I'm having them fill out some of this information before lesson one,
Nice.
where when we kind of hit the ground running into lesson one, there's kind of some of these things I already kind of know that they want or they're doing. Um, there's also kind of like a coach student like commitment at the end. Hey, we're gonna, I think when it comes to practice and all these things, the player signs it, I sign it as well. So it's kind of holding everyone accountable. But again, ultimately the main basis for that is, to get like going back to the beginning, to get as much information about you as I can.
Yeah.
And when you go to a doctor's office, right, they don't just pull you in and all right, what do we need to fix today, right? Like you've filled out some information and you've let them know some things about you, and hey, this is also what I'm having problems with. And I think that's kind of how we should approach our golf lessons a little bit more.
Yeah, I think that's really a great practice. Let's do a quick look at the second swing here.
Okay. So this is my player that's starting to kind of jump on some G Pro events and play professionally. Good player, been playing his whole life. Um, but we can start to see, I think, some of the things that he falls into, still being, as competitive as he is. Um, so just again, some of his tendencies, some of his DNA, where he'll fall into a little bit of this tilt into the backswing. So if we pull that up, and we can kind of visually see that, where just for me, a little too much torso and thoracic extension there going to the top. And so as we now go into, we can see how that's kind of started to trim away, right? So where someone like this, sure, that X factor is improved a little bit, but at the same time, we're trying to stabilize that pelvis again for him, where we're not getting that going way too far to the right, and then his upper body is kind of leaning left, and that's how he would kind of get his pressure left. So I think that's really important is why is this player doing this? I think so. You really have to dig into some of these better players too a little bit more. Where why do they feel like they need to do this? And I think sometimes it's their body might be in a different position, or they know they need to get forward. They're just doing it in a way that's just inefficient, right? So for me, with that move, I'm probably trying to protect his health more than anything. I'm probably trying to protect that back a little bit more. Where I know if he keeps doing, if he keeps doing this, and it was a little bit worse when he got to me the first time. But if he keeps doing that time after time, especially as much as he hits golf balls, we're going to be on IR here pretty soon. So I think one of the things that was interesting about him that we've kind of started to dig a little deeper into is when again, he's been junior player for a long time, so he's been playing for a long time. But one of the things that I think a lot of us were told growing up is we got to keep our heads still. And I think when we're looking at and Gear, I'm sure you've seen this on some of the 3D stuff, but when we're turning our torso properly into the backswing, our head just simply doesn't stay still. It might not, move up and down too much, but it's going to move a little bit to the trail side if we want to rotate properly. And then, so I think that was one of the things that he was trying to do for a long time, is he was trying to keep his head still, and that would actually get him into a little bit of this thoracic extension. So I think that was kind of interesting for him, that it's more like, why is he doing this? Why does he think he has to do this too? Or why has he fallen into this position? Well, thought he had to keep his head still. So now it's me telling him, hey, we can move our head to the right, and we can free that up a little bit. And then that's starting to get us not only, like I showed you, a better turn there, but I think one of the things we look at also, it should be the golf club, right? Did that thing change? Did that go into a position that's a little bit more efficient? We can't see this as much from that position, but a little bit more depth, a little bit more height, and a little bit more time to that golf swing there, which I think is always a good thing for him.
So here's a question from the audience. If you had pressure plates on him in this swing, is he showing more pressure on the lead foot, or is he showing more on the trail foot? Like, do you know him well enough to where that would you could answer that? Because before you do, I had somebody once tell me, having a pressure mat or force plates reveals so much about the swing, because when you just look at it, when I pinch my fingers together, you have no idea how hard I'm pressing my fingers together.
That's a good point.
Unless you have some instrument, you don't know if I'm squeezing with 50 pounds of force or I'm barely tapping my fingers together. So when you look at someone, I don't know that you can always tell where the pressure is or where the force is, but maybe you can comment a little bit on this particular guy, since you know him well.
Yeah, so no, that's a really good question. So we can see center of pressure. So that's huge. Kind of gives us a trace when it goes left, when it goes right, et cetera. And it kind of goes, along that toe heel basis too. So for him, it would kind of get stuck on that right, on his trail side. And it would get back left, but I don't think it would do it early enough. And so you really have to dig into looking at the pressure, but also looking at his body and going, okay, when his body and his upper mass starts to lean more towards a target, is that what's making the center pressure ball move forward, right? So, and again, that kind of goes back to, is he getting forward with his mass, or is he getting his pressure out in front of his mass? So, and that's the golden, that's the golden sauce right there, is for everyone, is how do we get our pressure to get in front of the mass, which is creating a moment arm.
That's great. That entire thing could be I'm sure is a webinar somewhere, maybe from Greg at TPI. Here's another question from the audience. How do you approach students that are not technically educated with swing data and get them to comprehend what you're trying to achieve?
Yeah, these are really good questions. So, I pretty much assume that, everyone steps in front. They don't know what I'm talking about when it comes to center of pressure, your upper mass, any of that. So I try to make it really, really as simple as I can. So I think most golf pros are trying to do that, which is a good thing. So I would say it's a good question. The simplest way I would say is that I use things that you already know how to do, right? So if I told you to do a cartwheel, well, some of us might not be able to do one anymore, but you kind of know how to do one, right? So I'm trying to tap into things that probably athletically to some degree that you already know how to do, and you get the concept, right? So if I got to do a cartwheel towards the target. If I told you to do a cartwheel towards the target, okay, I need to kind of push off my left, or I need to push off my right foot, which would be my trail foot. And then, okay, I'm going to go into a kind of cartwheel motion. And then, so that's obviously pushing pressure from my right foot into my left foot. And then I'm starting to tip my mass and I'm making a cartwheel. So I think that's one really quick way that I use, again, everyday things to get you to move a little bit better, a little bit more efficiently in your golf swing. So I think that's what we're always trying to do as golf pros. And that's going to shift from person to person a little differently. But I think I'm trying to use things that you already know how to do.
It's great. Good answer. We are pushing an hour. I want to ask one last question, and that is any advice to coaches on using this technology? And do you have any key takeaways that you found over the years that you've been using it that you have found valuable?
Yeah. So kind of like how I shared with you in the beginning, Gear, but when I started with this, I think I'm a really good example of that coach that's I don't have a lot of 3D background when it comes to looking at what the pelvis should be doing when it comes to up and down and especially the numbers when it comes to it. But what I have done is I've given a lot of lessons on the driving range in 2D. And so again, I know what I like to look at and I know where, my eyes like to go. So let's keep that. Let's, especially if, I give some good lessons, well, let's continue to do that. And when I'm seeing some of these numbers, let's not get too caught up in, okay, this is only, measuring this, pelvis is only turning this much, et cetera, et cetera. And so we're not putting anyone into this box, and where we can start to look at people a little bit more individually. So just because this person is X factor stretch this number doesn't mean that it should be the exact same for the next person. So I try not to put people in those categories, and then I generate my before and after, and then I pull up the 3D, and then I generate the 3D, and I start to go, oh, hey, like I like the player on the right, after a little bit better. Okay, wow, the X factor stretch has improved 3 there, and okay, wow, the pelvis, kind of stabilized the sway there. So that's really huge. So I think there's certain things that, I want to maybe, kind of hang my hat on as a coach, but I'm not necessarily like sharing that all with them in a lesson. So again, I think when I can really show them something quantifiable, I might do that, but I don't expect them to, kind of know what each of these things are or anything like that.
Sure. Well, thank you so much for your time. We're at an hour. I want to let you get back to doing what you do. And I thank everybody for joining us here for these webinars. We'll be doing more and bringing you more sort of educational ideas and ways that you can use, the app in your lessons, but also just general knowledge and to understand how you can hopefully improve your lessons. So, I think this has been really eye-opening for a lot of different reasons and some great demonstrations. So thank you, Jordan, so much for joining us. Appreciate you taking the time to prep for this and to go through all this stuff with us. And how people could find you on social media? What's your Instagram handle thing?
Yeah, thank you. It is Jordan Hubler Golf _PGA.
Awesome. So be sure to find Jordan and follow him. You put out great content on socials. I learned from it. If anybody out there has questions, you can always reach out to our team at Onform, support@onform.com. And we'll be doing plenty more of these in the future. Jordan, have a great rest of your day. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks,
And
Spear. Thanks
we'll
so
see you
much for
soon.
having me. All right, we'll see you.
Absolutely. Bye bye.
Bye bye.